A woman whispered one word about Judge Judy under her breath, thinking no one would hear it. But she forgot one critical thing in that courtroom. The microphone catches everything. And what happened next didn't just cost her the case. It cost her everything. The fluorescent lights of Judge Judy's courtroom hummed with their usual sterile brightness on a Monday morning in Studio City, California. The air was thick with tension, the kind that builds when two people are about to collide over money, pride, and who's really telling the truth. At the plaintiff's podium stood Karen Mitchell, a woman in her late 40s dressed in an oversized blazer that she clearly thought made her look professional. Her arms were crossed tightly over her chest, her foot tapping an impatient rhythm against the courtroom floor. Her face carried that particular expression, the one that said she'd already decided she was right before anyone else had even spoken. Across from her at the defendant's podium stood Marcus Chen, a 28-year-old contractor with tired eyes and a manila folder full of documents. He wore a simple button-down shirt and slacks, his posture straight but not stiff, the bearing of someone who'd done nothing wrong and knew it. Between them sat Judge Judy Scheindlin, reading glasses perched on her nose as she reviewed the case file in front of her. Her silver hair was perfectly styled, her black robe crisp, and her expression gave away nothing. But anyone who'd watched her show knew that look. The one where she was already 3 steps ahead, already seeing through whatever performance was about to unfold. Before we dive into this incredible case, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I love seeing where my viewers are around the world. And don't forget to hit that subscribe button so you never miss more unbelievable cases like this one. Now sit back, relax, and enjoy the video. The case seemed simple enough on paper. Karen was suing Marcus for $1,200, claiming he'd done shoddy work installing a kitchen backsplash in her home. Marcus countersued for the same amount, claiming she'd refused to pay for work that was completed perfectly and on time. Standard small claims court fare, nothing unusual. Nothing that would suggest what was about to happen. Karen shifted her weight, her fingers drumming against the podium. She'd brought a thick binder with her, stuffed with printed emails, blurry photos, and what she probably thought was ironclad evidence. In the gallery behind them sat about 15 people, other litigants waiting for their own cases. A few curious onlookers and Karen's friend Jennifer, who sat in the front row wearing an expression that said she already regretted coming. Bailiff Bird stood to the side, hands clasped, his face a mask of professional neutrality. Though his eyes tracked every movement in the room, the court stenographer's fingers hovered over her machine, ready to record every word, every pause, every moment of what was about to unfold. Judge Judy looked up from the file, removed her glasses, and fixed Karen with a steady gaze. "Ms. Mitchell," she said, her voice carrying that distinct Brooklyn sharpness that had made her famous. "You're claiming the defendant's work was substandard. Walk me through exactly what was wrong with it." Karen took a breath, her chest puffing up slightly, and opened her mouth to speak. What came out next would set everything in motion. But the real moment, the one that would change everything, was still hiding just beneath the surface, waiting for the perfect moment to detonate. Judge Judy Scheindlin had been doing this for over 25 years. She'd heard every excuse, every lie, every half-truth that people thought they could slip past her. She'd presided over thousands of cases, and somewhere along the way, she'd developed what court staff called the radar. She could spot someone who came to perform rather than present facts within the first 30 seconds. And right now that radar was pinging loudly. Karen launched into her explanation, her voice rising with manufactured outrage. "Your Honor, I hired Mr. Chen to install a backsplash in my kitchen. A simple job. He said it would take 2 days. I paid him half up front, $600, and he was supposed to get the other half when the job was done correctly." She emphasized the last word like it was a weapon. Judge Judy's eyebrow raised slightly. "And?" Karen flipped open her binder with dramatic flair. "And the tiles are crooked. They're uneven. The grout lines are inconsistent. I have photos, I have measurements, I have documentation of everything." She slid a stack of printed photos across to Bailiff Bird, who brought them to the judge. Judge Judy picked up the first photo, studied it for a moment, then the second, then the third. Her expression didn't change. She set them down carefully. "Ms. Mitchell, I'm looking at these photos and I don't see what you're describing." Karen's face flushed. "Well, if you look closely, Your Honor, you can see." "I am looking closely," Judge Judy interrupted, her tone sharp enough to cut glass. "What I see is a professionally installed backsplash with straight lines and even spacing. What I don't see is evidence of shoddy work." The courtroom went quiet. Karen's mouth opened and closed like a fish. This wasn't how this was supposed to go. She'd practiced this. She'd rehearsed her grievances with Jennifer over coffee. She'd even recorded herself to make sure she sounded convincing. Judge Judy turned her attention to Marcus. "Mr. Chen, show me what you brought." Marcus nodded and opened his folder with calm precision. "Your Honor, I have the signed contract with Ms. Mitchell, showing the agreed-upon price and scope of work. I have photos of the completed installation, taken with a level tool to show alignment. I have the material receipts showing I used the exact tiles she selected. And I have the signed completion form where she acknowledged the work was done before she refused to pay. He handed everything to Bailiff Bird, who delivered it to Judge Judy. She examined each document, her reading glasses back on, her finger tracing lines of text. The level in Marcus's photos showed perfect alignment. The completion form had Karen's signature, dated and clear. Judge Judy looked back up at Karen, and there was something new in her expression now. Not anger, not frustration, just recognition. She'd seen this before. Someone who hired a professional, got exactly what they paid for, and then decided they simply didn't want to pay. Ms. Mitchell, Judge Judy said slowly, did you or did you not sign this completion form? Karen hesitated. That hesitation told Judge Judy everything she needed to know. I signed it, but nothing. You signed it, which means you acknowledged the work was complete and satisfactory. Karen's voice rose, defensive now, the carefully rehearsed performance cracking. I signed it because he was standing there pressuring me. The courtroom shifted. Even the other litigants in the gallery leaned forward slightly. This was getting interesting. Judge Judy removed her glasses slowly, deliberately, and set them on the bench. It was a gesture anyone who'd watched the show recognized immediately. It meant someone was about to get dissected. He was pressuring you, Judge Judy repeated, her voice flat. A contractor asking to be paid for completed work is pressuring you. Karen nodded vigorously, sensing she'd found an angle. Yes, he kept texting me, calling me, showing up at my house. Showing up at your house where he was working? Judge Judy cut in. Karen faltered. Well, yes, but Ms. Mitchell, let me ask you something very simple. Did Mr. Chen complete the work you hired him to do? Technically, yes, but the quality. Technically? Judge Judy's voice sharpened. Either he did or he didn't. Which is it? Karen's face was red now, her carefully constructed composure unraveling thread by thread. He did the work, but it's not what I wanted. Then why did you sign a form saying it was complete and satisfactory? Silence. Karen looked down at her binder, flipping pages frantically as if the answer might be hiding somewhere in her printed emails. Judge Judy didn't wait. Mr. Chen, walk me through the timeline. Marcus cleared his throat, his voice steady and professional. Your Honor, Ms. Mitchell contacted me through my website in early March. She wanted a subway tile backsplash, white tiles with gray grout. I gave her a quote of $1,200, which she accepted. She paid $600 up front. I completed the installation over 2 days, exactly as promised. When I finished, I showed her the work. She walked through the kitchen, took photos, and signed the completion form. Then, when I asked for the final payment, she said she needed to transfer money from another account and would have it to me by the end of the week. He paused, pulling out his phone. I have text messages showing I followed up 3 times over 2 weeks. She kept saying soon or next week. Then on April 2nd, she sent me this. He showed his phone to Bailiff Bird, who brought it to Judge Judy. The judge read the text message aloud. The work is unacceptable. I'm not paying. Contact my lawyer if you have a problem. Judge Judy looked up at Karen. So you went from signing a completion form to claiming the work was unacceptable. What changed in those 2 weeks, Ms. Mitchell? Karen's mouth opened, then closed. Her friend Jennifer in the gallery was staring at the floor, clearly wishing she was anywhere else. I looked at it more carefully and realized. You realized you didn't want to pay, Judge Judy finished. That's what changed. Karen's voice pitched higher, defensive and desperate. That's not true. I watched YouTube videos about tile installation and the professionals said. Judge Judy held up one hand. Stop, right there. You watched YouTube videos? Yes. And they showed me what proper installation looks like, and his work doesn't. Ma'am, Judge Judy interrupted, her tone ice cold now. YouTube videos do not override a signed contract and a completion form with your signature on it. Do you understand that? The courtroom felt smaller suddenly, the walls closer. Karen's breathing was audible now, quick and shallow. She glanced back at Jennifer, looking for support, but Jennifer was studying her shoes like they held the secrets of the universe. Karen turned back to Judge Judy and her expression shifted. The desperation crystallized into something else. Resentment. Anger. The look of someone who realized they were losing and didn't know how to handle it. Judge Judy leaned back in her chair, her eyes never leaving Karen's face. Ms. Mitchell, let me explain something to you. I've been doing this for a very long time, and I can tell within the first 2 minutes whether someone came here for justice or came here for a performance. Which one are you? Karen's jaw clenched. I came here because I was wronged. No, Judge Judy said simply. You came here because you don't want to pay for work you received. There's a difference. The words hung in the air like a verdict already delivered. Karen's hands gripped the edges of the podium, her knuckles white. "You're not even listening to me." Her voice cracked on the last word, loud enough that Bailiff Byrd shifted slightly, his attention sharpening. Judge Judy's expression didn't change. "I'm listening perfectly. What I'm not hearing is evidence. What I'm hearing is excuses, deflection, and a lot of talking around the fact that you signed a document saying the work was complete." Karen's breathing quickened. She looked down at her binder again, flipping pages with shaking hands. "I have emails. I have documentation of my concerns." "Concerns you didn't mention until after you were asked to pay," Judge Judy interjected. "That's convenient timing, don't you think?" Marcus stood quietly at his podium, his folder closed now. He'd presented everything he needed to present. Now he was just watching the same thing he'd watched 2 months ago. Someone who couldn't accept that no meant no. That a deal was a deal. That a signature meant something. Judge Judy picked up Marcus's photos again, the ones showing the level tool against the tiles, proving perfect alignment. "Mr. Chen, in your professional opinion, does this work meet industry standards?" "Yes, Your Honor. It exceeds them." Judge Judy nodded, then held up one of Karen's blurry photos. "Ms. Mitchell, explain to me what in this photo shows defective work." Karen leaned forward, squinting at the image from across the courtroom. "The grout line on the left side is thicker than the right side." Judge Judy tilted her head. "I don't see that. Bailiff Byrd, come look at this." Byrd approached, examined the photo, then shook his head slightly. "I don't see it either, Judge." Karen's voice rose to a near shout. "Because you're not looking." "If you would just listen to what I'm saying, Ms. Mitchell!" Judge Judy's voice cut through the courtroom like a gavel strike. "Lower your voice. This is a courtroom, not a playground." The silence that followed was suffocating. Karen's face was scarlet now, her chest heaving. She looked like she wanted to say something. Needed to say something, but couldn't find the words that would make this go the way she'd imagined. Judge Judy leaned forward, her elbows on the bench, her hands clasped. "Let me tell you what I think happened here. I think Mr. Chen did exactly what you hired him to do. I think you were happy with the work when it was done. And I think when it came time to pay, you decided you'd rather keep your $600. So you invented problems that don't exist, filmed blurry photos that show nothing, and came into my courtroom thinking you could talk your way out of your obligation." Each sentence landed like a hammer. Karen's eyes were glassy now. Whether from anger or humiliation, it was hard to tell. "That's not—" she started, but her voice trailed off. Judge Judy wasn't finished. "You don't get to do that, Ms. Mitchell. You don't get to waste this young man's time, damage his reputation, and drag him to court because you changed your mind about paying. That's not how this works." Karen's mouth twisted into something ugly. She turned slightly, just a few degrees, toward where Jennifer sat in the gallery. Her lips barely moved, her voice dropping to what she thought was a whisper. Something private. Something just between her and her friend. But she forgot one critical thing. In Judge Judy's courtroom, there are microphones everywhere. Lapel mics. Overhead mics. Mics that catch everything. And what Karen whispered, thinking no one important would hear, was about to change everything. "Crazy old bat." The words were quiet, almost inaudible to the people in the gallery. But they weren't inaudible to the sound system. They weren't inaudible to the recording equipment. And they definitely weren't inaudible to Judge Judy. The courtroom froze. Marcus's eyes widened. Bailiff Byrd's head turned sharply toward Karen. Jennifer's hand flew to her mouth. And Judge Judy, slowly, deliberately, placed her pen down on the bench with a soft click that sounded like thunder. Judge Judy's face didn't change expression, not immediately. But something shifted in her eyes, something cold and absolutely final. She sat perfectly still for 5 long seconds, and in that silence, the entire courtroom seemed to hold its breath. Karen hadn't realized yet. She was still looking toward Jennifer, still thinking she'd gotten away with her little moment of private venting, still believing the microphone hadn't betrayed her. Then Judge Judy spoke, and her voice carried a tone that could freeze fire. "Ms. Mitchell." Karen turned back, confusion flickering across her face. "Yes, Your Honor." "What did you just say?" The question hung in the air like a noose. Karen blinked. I didn't say anything, Your Honor." Judge Judy reached up and tapped her lapel microphone with one finger. The sound echoed through the courtroom speakers, a sharp reminder of what every person in that room should have already known. "This microphone," Judge Judy said slowly, each word deliberate, "picks up everything. Every word. Every whisper. Every insult you think no one important is listening to." The color drained from Karen's face so fast it was like watching ice spread across a windshield. I don't... Would you like me to have it played back?" Judge Judy asked, her tone absolutely neutral. "Because I can do that. We record everything in this courtroom, every single word." Karen's mouth opened and closed. Her hands started trembling against the podium. Jennifer had slid down slightly in her seat, as if trying to disappear into the gallery itself. Marcus stood frozen. caught between shock and something that might have been vindication. "Your Honor, Karen's voice cracked. "I apologize. I was frustrated. I didn't mean—" "You didn't mean for me to hear it," Judge Judy cut in, her voice sharp as a scalpel. "That's different from not meaning it." "Which is it, Ms. Mitchell? Did you not mean it, or did you just not mean to get caught?" The distinction landed like a slap. Karen's eyes were welling now, not from sadness but from pure humiliation. "I shouldn't have said it. I'm sorry." "You're sorry," Judge Judy repeated, and somehow she made those two words sound like an indictment. "Let me tell you what sorry looks like, Ms. Mitchell. Sorry is coming in here with real evidence. Sorry is treating people with respect even when you don't get your way. Sorry is accepting responsibility instead of inventing problems to avoid paying your bills." Karen tried to speak, but Judge Judy held up one hand. "I'm not finished. You walk into my courtroom with a case that has no merit. You present blurry photos that show nothing. You admit to signing a completion form and then deciding later you weren't happy. You waste this young man's time, you damage his professional reputation, and you try to use my court to steal $600 from someone who did exactly what you hired him to do." Each sentence was a nail in a coffin. Karen's face was crimson now, tears sliding down her cheeks, but they looked more like tears of rage than remorse. Judge Judy picked up Marcus's documentation again, holding it up. Mr. Chen came prepared. "He has photos with a level showing perfect work. He has your signature on a completion form. He has text messages showing he tried to resolve this professionally. He did everything right." She set the papers down and fixed Karen with a stare that could cut steel. "You did everything wrong. And then when you realized you were losing, when you realized that your little performance wasn't working, you decided to insult me. In my own courtroom," the words echoed. Somewhere in the gallery, someone coughed nervously. "This courtroom operates on respect, Ms. Mitchell. I don't care if people agree with my rulings. I don't care if they like me. But they will respect this institution, and they will respect the process. When you resort to name-calling like a child on a playground, you show me exactly who you are." Karen's voice came out as barely a whisper. "Your Honor, please what?" Judge Judy's eyebrow arched. "Please ignore what you said? Please pretend it didn't happen? Please give you a pass because you got caught?" Karen had no answer. There was no answer. Judge Judy leaned back in her chair, her decision already made, her patience exhausted. "Judgment for the defendant," she said, her voice ringing with finality. Karen gasped audibly. "Your Honor, I'm not finished," Judge Judy said, her tone brooking no interruption. "You owe Mr. Chen the $1,200 you refused to pay. You will also pay his court filing fees of $150. You will pay for his lost work time today, which he documented as $500, and you will pay all court costs." She paused, letting the numbers sink in. "Total judgment, $1,850. Karen's legs seemed to buckle slightly. She gripped the podium to steady herself. That's not fair." The words came out strangled, desperate. Judge Judy's expression didn't change. "Fair? Let me tell you about fair, Ms. Mitchell. Fair is honoring your contracts. Fair is paying people for their work. Fair is not dragging someone to court with a bogus lawsuit because you don't want to pay what you owe. And fair is definitely not calling a judge names because your little scheme didn't work out." She picked up her gavel. "You want to call me crazy? That's your right. Outside this courtroom, you can say whatever you want. But in here you show respect or you pay the price." The gavel came down with a crack that sounded like a gunshot. "We're done here. Next case." Bailiff Bird stepped forward. "Please exit through the rear, ma'am." Karen stood there frozen, her face a mask of disbelief and humiliation. The other litigants in the gallery were staring openly now, some with expressions of shock, others with barely concealed satisfaction. Marcus collected his folder quietly, professionally, his face neutral but his shoulders visibly lighter. Jennifer had already slipped out of the gallery, abandoning her friend to face this alone. Karen finally moved, her hands shaking as she tried to gather her binder. Papers slipped out, fluttering to the floor. She bent to pick them up, her movements jerky and uncoordinated. No one helped her. The walk to the exit felt like a mile. Every eye in the courtroom tracked her movement. The door closed behind her with a soft click, and the courtroom seemed to exhale collectively. But the story wasn't over. Not even close. Because what happened next, what was waiting just outside those doors, would follow Karen Mitchell for months to come. If you've ever seen someone who thought they were untouchable get exactly what they deserved, drop a comment below, and make sure you hit that subscribe button with notifications on. Because we're breaking down real moments where actions have real consequences. You won't believe what happened when this episode aired. Let's continue. The episode aired 3 weeks later on a Tuesday afternoon. Karen had told almost no one what really happened. She'd spun a careful story to her family and friends. A story where Judge Judy was unfair, where she'd been treated poorly, where she'd basically won, because the system was rigged. Jennifer, the friend from the courtroom, had stayed quiet. unsure how to correct the narrative without making things worse. When the episode was announced in the local TV listings, Karen felt a knot form in her stomach, but she convinced herself it wouldn't be that bad. Editing would save her. They'd cut the worst parts. They'd make her look reasonable. She was wrong. The episode aired unedited, raw, and brutal. Within an hour, clips started appearing on YouTube. By evening, they'd spread to TikTok, Instagram, and Facebook. The thumbnail showed Karen's face red and tear-streaked with the caption, "Judge Judy destroys Karen who called her crazy." The clip of the whisper, enhanced and subtitled, played on loop. The comments section exploded, thousands of people sharing their own stories about entitled customers, difficult clients, people who refused to pay for completed work. Karen's name became synonymous with something she'd never intended, a cautionary tale. 6 months later, Karen still got recognized. "Weren't you on Judge Judy?" strangers would ask. She'd learned to nod quietly, admitting her mistake. She paid Marcus every dollar plus penalties. Her reputation at work suffered, co-workers treating her differently after seeing the episode. But the real cost wasn't money or embarrassment. It was the lesson she'd learned too late. Respect isn't optional and technology forgets nothing. One whispered insult caught by a microphone she'd forgotten about had taught her what years of entitlement never could. Actions have consequences. Always. Have you ever said something you thought no one would hear? Share your story in the comments. If this reminded you that respect matters everywhere, hit that like button and subscribe for more real courtroom moments where karma delivers justice. Remember, the microphone always catches everything and the internet never forgets. Thanks for watching.